Hello, my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. Over 6 months ago, I made a video about the plants in my collection that were struggling. It's this video right here. And honestly, I was still pregnant when I made that video, which is absolutely insane to me because my son is 6 months old today. I thought it might be fun to give you guys a little bit of an update on the plants from that video. Why not? I like following other people's collections and seeing updates on things that are happening. And believe me, there are plants in my collection right now that are struggling, and they're different plants from the plants that were struggling 6 months ago. So maybe I'll make another struggling plants video if you guys liked that one. But let's get into updating you on the plants from back then. The goeppertia makoyana or the calathea makoyana. She's totally fine. And I just kept up with her watering. I kept up with making sure she didn't get any spider mites, all that. And she was so happy. But now, if you notice, we're getting a lot of leaf curl action right now. And several of her leaves died or started dying off. I don't fully understand what's going on with her. Like, I didn't do anything different. I don't know. I might need to just go in and investigate because this is one plant where I just really don't know what's going on. I don't see any pests on her. I've treated her, but yeah, I did remove a large number of her leaves that were yellowing off and dying, so she's a little bit more barren than she used to be, and it's kind of sad because she was doing so well for so long. So the first plant is my goeppertia makoyana, and excuse me, girly, you had a glow up. In the last 6 months, she has improved tremendously. I mean, look how I watched the video back before making this video, and I was absolutely stunned at how much more full and gorgeous she is. She's back to what she was like before she started to decline. Actually, she might even be more full than she was. And I'm so proud of her. And she even has like new growth coming into all over the place. There's so many new leaves, and yeah, she's really, really filling out. I think the fact that spring is coming has done her some favors, but she did start improving several months ago. And honestly, so I did do some investigating. I took her out of the pot and I realized that there was some mild root rot going on. So, it wasn't a really crazy case. It was just like the very tips of the roots were starting to get mushy, but I think that was enough to put her under a lot of stress. And also the soil that she was in was like her original nursery pot soil, which retained probably too much moisture. I took away some of that old soil. I replenished the soil with Daily tanks. I also trimmed away the icky bad roots. And I continued along my merry way, didn't really skip a beat with watering her. I just kind of was very intentional about pampering her and paying attention to her needs. And she went back to normal and really exploded with growth. So at this point, I think that she might be ready for like an actual repot soon, because I kept her in the same size of pot when I zhuzhed her, I guess you could say. But I can see like some of the, I'm trying to not spill any soil while I show you, but do you see? Oh gosh, of course I did spill soil. But there's like these rhizomes. There are like these rhizomes coming out the bottom of the pot. So one of these days, probably this summer, I might look into repotting her. But yeah, really, really fun. I'm so happy that she's taken off again. That's not the case with all the plants on this list, but it's kind of fun to at least start on a high note, okay? And she's always been sort of a middle of the line plant for me, where obviously I don't hate her and I generally like having her around, but she's also not a plant that ever really stands out to me all that much. And that's my domino peace lily. Like, she's always grown pretty well for me. Obviously peace lilies are pretty thirsty and dramatic plants, so they let you know when they need to be watered and all that. I was so good about keeping up with this plant's watering and everything. Anytime she got the least bit droopy, I'd water her and she'd be happy and she'd grow a ton. But again, kind of going back to like my first trimester, there was a period of time, she is in this bedroom, which is the guest bedroom. I don't come in here like every single day. It's typically to care for my plants or to clean it or whatever. And there was a time when I just like didn't come in here for like a week, and apparently I don't know, I had a brain fart and I just like completely missed a watering for her or something, because I came in here and dude, I 1000% thought she was like dead, like completely toast. The next plant that had been struggling was my domino peace lily. I feel like she looks pretty much exactly the same as she did 6 months ago. I did trim away some of the leaves that were kind of dying off. And you know, I will say there is some new growth. So like, come on. Yeah, okay, right here. There is some new growth. Like, see, that's a new leaf right there. And there's a couple other leaves on the bottom there that are starting to kind of pop up a little bit. So, you know, she is living. But really still not thriving. And part of that is that I admittedly put her in a very low light situation. I have not done the best by this plant. I mean, that goeppertia makoyana, I really worked hard at with getting it better because I really love that plant. But this plant to me is kind of neither here nor there. I think I would like it more if it were big and beautiful. And it's kind of backwards because I'm not really giving it the opportunity to be big and beautiful. I really think that she needs more light, and there have been a few occasions where I've missed watering and she was like, ugh, stressed out again. I could do a lot better by this plant, I think. But I don't know if I'm really going to, because I like where she's at the moment. This spring and summer, I'm going to do a full-scale rearranging of my plants, and I'm going to revisit a lot of those low light areas and see if I can add grow lights to them. And I don't know, I'd really love to see more of my plants thrive. It kind of stinks because there are some plants that I just kind of stick in lower light corners or don't pay as much attention to. I'm excited to be more intentional and like give more of my plants the opportunity to grow well, because at this moment it kind of feels like I have to pick and choose with a lot of plants. So I don't know if that made any sense, and let me know if you guys relate to that at all, because I do feel kind of bad that not all of my plants get equal treatment or equal opportunity to grow well, because they're not all in ideal places. But I only have so many ideal places in my home for plants, but I also want plants to be all over my home. You get what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? I don't know. That's sort of the situation that I'm at with this plant currently. We'll see if I have a change of heart. Honestly, I might. This is probably a good idea. I might put her outside over the summer and see if she takes off just with being out in the humidity and the light and that sort of thing. Obviously, she won't be in like full sun or anything. I'll just have her on my front porch, but that's better light than most places she would get in my house anyways. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. I just came up with that. She will be an outdoor plant this summer, and we'll see if she does take off and I fall in love with her. Maybe I'll take better care of her. Hoya carnosa compacta and my Hoya carnosa compacta variegata. I'm so frustrated. So both of these plants, I've just had a lot of trouble with them. They're currently both infested with mealybugs. And I think that with this one, it came from the nursery that I got it from, because I was just so excited and I did not really thoroughly check. So number one, they've got mealybugs infestations, which I've been dealing with. I've been putting systemic in the soil. It's been just an uphill battle where I've been spraying them and like cotton swabbing them and everything, but it's so hard. Like, do you see all of these little grooves? It's so impossible to get to all of them and to find all of them in the little crevices, because the pests just like to eat up those crevices. But I've also been wondering if they maybe also have flat mites. The next one was my Hoya carnosa compacta, but it was both the green compacta and the variegated one. So let me grab those. All right, are you ready? All right, Hoya carnosa compacta, the green version, and oh, hello. Have you come to join me? My cat came in here. Hey, you wanna say hi to me? Do you wanna say hi? I was like freaked out because the door opened and I was like, I thought the door was closed, like, and there's no one else in the house. Like, both my kids are sleeping and my husband's gone right now. So I was like, who opened the door? But it was just my little kitty cat. I must not have closed it all the way. I love you, sweet girl, sweet baby. All right. Anyways, back to the plants. Yeah, this is my Hoya carnosa compacta, like the normal green one. And this is my Hoya carnosa compacta variegata. Yeah, both of these guys were definitely suffering from root rot and from pests of all kinds, mealybugs, flat mites. Like, it was a double whammy, triple whammy, I don't know. It was just a bad situation all around. This plant I consistently treated using sulfur fungicide, and I mean, she's grown. Like, this whole bit right here is new growth. This is new growth. There was some new growth along here, and now right here, I don't know how well you can see that, but there are some new leaves popping up on this guy too. So all in all, she's pretty happy. Like, still not super glorious, a little bit funny. Honestly, I'm just happy that this plant has not perished by now. So yes, overall, I just have positive reports. Could she be more beautiful and doing better? I mean, yeah, like there are some gorgeous Hoya compactas out there that I've seen, but compared to where she was at before, I would say this is net positive. So as we're gearing up for spring and summer, I really hope that this plant does well. Now this one, on the other hand, my variegated version, declined even more. And I kind of, as a last ditch effort, I took a bunch of cuttings of this plant and attempted to propagate them. They all died except for this one, which was like the topmost cut of the plant. And it has put out a couple of leaves, and I think there's some new growth happening. It's really hard to tell, so I really don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it. But there is just a tiny bit of growth happening in there, and it's rooted, so I still have the plant. It's just a matter of slowly reviving it. This would be a long-term project. I have no idea if it's ever going to be large and majestic. Honestly, it might take years to get to the point where I want to see it at this rate that it's growing, because it is not growing very fast. Even in a prop box with a heat mat under it, with high humidity and a south-facing window, it is like a snail. I mean, I'm glad that I still have the plant, but honestly, at this rate, if I were to see another one of this plant pop up for sale somewhere local for a reasonable price, I would definitely consider getting it, just because this isn't really cutting it for me. We'll see. I'm not gonna get rid of it. I love it. I just want it to be bigger and happier. So yeah, I'm just continuing to do my best. I'm taking care of it. But yeah, this one kind of plummeted, and it's stable now, but just very small. It is my Goeppertia zebrina. Now, I will say a lot of my prayer plants, they kind of go like up and down for me. They're a little bit of a roller coaster where for months they will be really happy. Some of my easiest plants in my collection, they'll be putting off lots of growth and just generally mwah, perfect. But then they get hit with something and then they like poop out, or they just are really dramatic, like we saw with the Goeppertia makoyana. Now with my Goeppertia zebrina, the thing that happened with her, so she was so happy, and then she got spider bites. The zebrina, her leaves are much more fragile. You know, first of all, the treatment just kind of does a number. So I've removed most of the leaves where there was a lot of damage that it wasn't worth keeping anymore. But as you can see, there's just there's quite a bit of damage on some of these leaves from specifically that treatment for the spider mites. And also, even though the spider mites are gone now, I think that they really stressed her out. So ever since she got the spider mites, she's just not as happy as she used to be. She's not really putting out a whole lot of growth. Here is my goeppertia zebrina, and this one has kind of been more of the same. It hasn't gotten another pest since, 6 months ago, I don't think. If I'm remembering correctly, yeah, I don't think it's gotten any pests, so that's good. This side of the plant specifically has had like a lot of new leaves. So, you know, some of the older leaves died off, or I cut them off because they didn't look good. But on this side over here, you can tell that these leaves are really quite beautiful and not damaged or anything like that. Right there is another new leaf that's coming in. Like, this is a gorgeous leaf right there. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there are a lot of really pretty leaves that are newer leaves. Of course, some of the older leaves, like on this side, are kind of gross and crispy on the edges and have that spider mite damage. But the newer leaves that have come in so far are really, really nice. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to love on this plant. Also, I'm trying to remember when I repotted this plant. I do think that since I filmed that previous video, I potted it up into a pot that is ceramic, and it was like a 1/2 inch size up from the previous pot because it was ever so slightly root bound. And again, I just kind of similar to the goeppertia makoyana, I just wanted to refresh the soil. I would say overall, this is also fairly positive, but not quite as like explosively positive as the goeppertia makoyana. I think that the last plant that I'm gonna highlight is one that's struggling, is my philodendron mamei. So I love this plant. It's probably one of the most expensive plants in my collection. And yes, there is a stunning new leaf that just unfurled. So he's doing pretty well in that respect. But I will say I've had some trouble with this plant, which has been really discouraging to me. On the whole, I mean, he's still growing. I think that he's generally happy-ish, but with this plant, we've had a lot of like 1 leaf in, 1 leaf out, or 2 leaves out, 1 leaf in type of deal, and we're playing this little game that I'm not a big fan of. It's kind of like yellowing around the edges, and then this one as well. You can't see it as much with this one, but he's definitely also yellowing off a little bit. And this leaf is slightly, ever so slightly deformed, which makes me a little bit worried that there's a pest at play. But I don't know, it could be a case of me loving this plant too much, to be quite honest with you. And maybe it's all just in my head and my imagination that he's not doing well. All right, so here's my philodendron mamei. And okay, looking in the viewfinder, what a stunner he is. Look at those leaves. All right, and there's also another new leaf kind of starting to find his way. See, there's a caterpillar right there. I've kept a very vigilant eye for spider mites and that sort of thing with this plant, since that was one of my big issues, that he had spider mites 6 months ago, or at least he had gotten spider mites recently and I was treating him for him or something like that. But thankfully, there have been no spider mites since then. He has really taken off, I think. I mean, in comparison to the video, he looks a lot better in my opinion. And some of these newest leaves have been just so beautiful. Look at that, that's so nice and big. And yeah, some of the older leaves have that yellowing, but they like haven't died off or anything. They've stuck around for months. I think I addressed it in the video as well, that some of my concerns with this plant were very much in my head. My anxiety surrounding it were just because It was one of the more expensive plants I had ever purchased. I always had this dark cloud over my head of, oh my gosh, like I feel like I can't replace this plant. I think the longer that I've owned this plant and the more mature he's gotten, at least these last 6 months, I feel like I've gotten a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less anxious with him. My confidence has grown, which is really a good thing. Yeah, it is kind of funny though, because I think I need to change the position of this plant somehow, because all the leaves have turned to face the west facing window that's in that direction, but it's sitting like this and yet it's crawling this way. So now it's like trying to turn itself around. I would say he's probably got like 3 more leaves until he's hitting up at the edge here, which is kind of insane. So I don't really know what I plan to do when that day comes. One of my anxieties with this plant is that it took so long for the leaves to come in and grow, and I've just realized like philodendron mamei is just a slower grower. Most crawlers in general tend to be on the slower side, with obviously there are some exceptions. I've just learned a lot more about this plant and I feel more comfortable about meeting its needs, and I think everything is going to be just fine. Well, I believe that is all the plants. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want me to make a part 2 of my struggling plants, because as I mentioned before, I have other plants that are struggling now. It's an endless cycle, you know? And yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye!